Okay, let's see if anyone's on. We have no one as it stands. Let me grab that. Right, so we've got one person on. Pop your name in the chat box, whether you Harris or Lamar. Just wait on that. And then the first thing I'm going to do is talk you through the homework. Because again, it's not what I'm looking for. It looks like we need to do a very, very clear explanation on what you've been asked to do here. Because it wasn't what I was hoping to see, I'm not going to lie. So pop your name in your chat box, Harris or Numan, whichever one. Harris, brilliant, excellent, excellent. And I presume the other person is Numan. Put your name in the chat box so I know that it's you. Do you get some random visitors from my other classes sometimes? You're always welcome. Okay, brilliant. So we've got 3 people. Excellent. Right, so what I'm going to do is first analyze your homework. So I'm going to start with Numan's because Numan's got sent first. Hello, Iman. Unless you need to know how to sketch a quadratic graph, don't stress too much about this one. Iman, one thing you can do for me, make sure that you can log into Google Classroom for Monday, all right? So I'm going to try doing a few new things. As I said, after Easter, I'll do new things with you with Google Classroom. So I'm going to try that on Monday. So just make sure your Google Classroom works, all right? Right, so, Numan, looking at your homework, I'm still seeing, so I'm looking at question 1, and that question is the one that goes x squared plus 9x plus 14, all right? And I can see a few things that I'm not happy with. Number 1 is the fact that you're still writing your answer as x plus 2 plus x plus 7. They are not additions. That is the correct answer, with the brackets touching or very, very close to each other because the brackets are being multiplied to each other. So you can see that entirely perfectly. So that's what your answer should look like. It shouldn't have a plus sign on it. And I think this is now literally the 4th week we're having this conversation, right? Do not put a sign here. Yes? If you were going to put a sign here, and you shouldn't, it would be a multiplication sign. But we're not doing it. Okay? That was the first thing. The second thing was this idea about sketching, right? Because all of yours, and I think also that all of Harris's are plots, all right? Let's get, again, the difference between sketch and plot. And hopefully you're taking notes on this. I did ask your mum to make sure you take notes. So sketch versus plot. So what you did was plot, okay? And you plotted the graph by doing a table. You plotted the points on axes, which you have to do for both of them, and then you joined up the points. Okay, fair enough. That's not what I asked. What I asked you was to sketch. And remember, for sketching, there's 3 things that you need to have. You need to have the shape the right way around. You need to have the x-intercepts, and you need the y-intercepts. And I know you can't see those words. I'm going to move the camera just to show you that in just a second. All right? So that's the difference between what I asked you to do, which was sketch, and what you chose to do, which was plot. And they are different things. They're marked in different ways, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch x squared plus 9x plus 14 for you so you can see what it is that you need to be doing, right? Because if you misread or misunderstand or do your own thing in an exam, you will lose a whole bunch of marks, right? So to give you an example, for this, the one you did, you'd get maybe 1 mark out of 3 or 4, all right? Be 1 mark out of 3 or possibly 2 marks out of 4, all right? Probably more likely to be 1 mark out of 3, all right? So let's have a look at this. We've got y equals x squared plus 9x plus 14, yeah? And you correctly factorized it. X plus 2, x plus 7, with only that little problem that you put a plus sign in there that's not necessary, yeah? What I wanted you to do was draw the connection between the factorization and how to sketch the graph. So let's sketch the graph. This is what a sketch looks like. We just start with axes, yeah? I haven't numbered them, not yet. I know I've got a U-shaped graph. How do I know it's a U-shaped graph? Because it's a positive x squared, all right? That's something you got taught in the last video, and the last video is up, so you can go back and look at that, right? So if you've got x squared, and the x squared is a positive number, like 6x squared, 2x squared, 5x squared, a half x squared, all of your x squareds are going to be a U shape, okay? So this tells me straight away I am a U shape, all right? Cool. Where else do I get the rest of my credit from? You get the rest of the credit from knowing where does it cut the x-axis and where does it cut the y-axis, all right? So like, if I want to go through 4, if I've got this plus 14 here, That's where I cut the y-axis. So again, if you didn't know that, and there's no reason why you shouldn't, because I taught it to you last time, right? Wherever this number is where you cut the y-axis. So straight away, I know I'm going through 14. And notice I'm not doing any kind of scale or anything like that, right? I've just put 14 there. So I haven't gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I measured it. It's exactly 14, all right? What else do I know? What else do I know? I know it goes to -2, and I know it goes to -7. How do I get that? By solving this equation, the factorization equals 0. And do you remember that from like that factorization equals 0 business means that what makes that bracket, those brackets equal 0? What's going to make x plus 2 equal 0? -2. What's going to make x plus 7 equal 0? -7. So go through -2, -7. There is my graph. And that, unlike all your hard work, because you did a fair bit of work to plot those graphs, would get you full marks. And your hard work would have got you at best 2, maybe 1, depending on how many marks you give it. So how do I get credit for drawing the sketch? I get the shape right, I get the x-intercept right, and I get the y-intercept right. So I hope that makes sense to you, all right? So Naman, can you confirm in the chat box whether that did make sense to you? And if it didn't, can you tell me what confused you, all right? So definition of a sketch. You need to get the shape right, you need to get the x-intercepts, you need to get the y-intercept. For a quadratic, you look at the x squared. If it's a positive x squared, like a 5x squared or a 2x squared or a 1x squared or just an x squared, it's going to be a U shape. Then all you've got to do, you don't need to find the extra one after the 7. The graph carries on forever. Okay, that's a fair shout. Thank you for raising that, Nima. It's a really good question, actually. How were you expected to know that it goes on after 7? Well, to be fair, the graph goes on forever. All right? The graph goes on forever. If you think about it, if you plot, like, if you did a table and you did 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the graph is just going to get taller and taller and taller. You don't need to draw the whole graph to infinity. You can't. You don't have infinite time, right? But what you can do is show that you understand that the graph goes on forever by just, extending it a little bit more beyond the points that, between -7 and -2. So this graph goes on forever. Imagine if you can do this yourself, you substitute 1,000 into there. You get 1,000 squared, which is 1,000,000 plus 9,000 plus 14. So it's 1,009,014, right? The graph carries on. It never stops. It's something that we call, it's a continuous graph. So there's no holes in it, all right? So just be aware that they're going to have that U shape and they'll carry on. Every quadratic that you have, it's either going to be a U shape or another shape, which we'll come across hopefully today, all right? But when you're plotting it, you're only plotting parts of it, so you only see part of the U shape. So if you look at your first one, the x squared plus 9x plus 14, the only bit you've got is this, yeah? And that's why you'd lose the mark for the shape, because a quadratic doesn't just look like that. If you were plotting it, you'd get 4 marks. If the question had been, what I'd set was plot this, you'd have got 4 marks. But I said sketch it, and sketch it requires you to show the examiner or show whoever's looking at your work that you understand that the shape of a quadratic is a U. All right? Well, when it's positive. All right? So I hope that's making sense to you. What we're going to do now is do an example together. And the example I'm going to choose to do together is the second one from your homework, which is x squared plus 6x plus 9. All right? So that's the example that we're going to do together as a group of 3. All right? So x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now, if you look at your working, Numan, your factorization is wrong. I'm going to have a look at Harris's. And actually, Harris's might be the one that's wrong. No, Harris's is right. Harris got this right. The factorization here is x plus 3, x plus 3. All right? And the graph we're sketching is y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is sketch that for you. Let's go through the ideas. First of all, we draw ourselves some axes. Right? We draw axes, nothing exciting, right? What do we know? We know it's a U shape. How do we know it's a U shape? Because the x squared is positive. Yeah? It's an x squared, a 2x squared, a 5x squared. It's something x squared that's positive. Relatively simple. All right? We also know that it's going to go through the y-axis at 9. The y-intercept is always just the number that's at the end. So there's a 9 there. Okay, so it's going to go through that 9. What else have we got? We've got x plus 3. We need to find the x-axis. We've got the shape. We need to find the coordinates where it goes through the x-axis. If it does, and it actually doesn't. It touches it, it doesn't go through it. So we solve this equation. All right? That's the equation we're going to solve. When we're solving anything equals 0 and it's 2 brackets, all we need to do is make the brackets equal 0. So x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3 would make plus 3 equal 0. So minus 3 is your only answer here, because minus 3 comes out for both this bracket and that bracket. So we know it's going to touch the axis at minus 3. Notice I said touch there. It's not going to go through, because if it goes through, it will never be able to come back. All right? So what's the shape of your graph here? It's going to look like that. Okay? Again, a U shape. I'm sorry that looks more like a V shape. It's a rubbish drawing. It's more like a U shape. I might have another go at, drawing that. Ugh. I mean, my artistic skills are a bit lacking, you know that. But that's roughly the idea, right? So where do you get credit from when you're sketching? Where it cuts the x-axis. So it cuts the x-axis of minus 3 only. So the only thing that comes out of that is the minus 3. And it's going through positive 9. All right? How do I know it's going through positive 9 on the y-axis? Because it tells me so here. All right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you to take notes. Again, and this time I want you to take good notes, because clearly the notes were lacking from last time. All right? How do I sketch a graph? There are 3 things you need to get. The shape right, where it cuts the x-axis, and where it cuts the y-axis. Then I'm going to set you one example, and I'm going to ask you to describe it in the chat box, all right? But for now, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes. I want you to make sure that you understand that if I give you a quadratic, you now know how to sketch it, right? Next week, I'm giving you a test on this, all right? Because you've done a fair bit now. So you've got about another 2 minutes. When you finish copying notes, pop something in the chat box for me. Excellent, well done. Well done, I'm just going to wait on Harris. So as soon as you've done Harris, just pop your thing in the chat box. I'm now going to, as soon as we've done that, I'm going to test you on this skill now. So what I'm going to ask you to do, so I'm going to give you a quadratic equation. I'm going to ask you to sketch it using the method that I've shown you here. Okay, not plot, sketch. All right. So I'm just waiting on Harris now. No rush. Brilliant. Okay, cool. So I'll give you a relatively easy one. All right, a relatively easy one. X squared plus, probably, to be honest, we're running out of ones that we haven't done before. It's done so many examples. Let's go with 7x. And I'm sure you've done this one already, I'm sure. All right. So if you've done this already, go back and look at your work and just give me the answer from there, checking that you've got it right. So I want you to draw me a sketch of this. All right. It's going to be a U shape. That's 1 mark straight up. Very good. And to be fair, if you look at the mark schemes, even at A level, believe it or not, you get credit for getting the shape right. Probably not for a quadratic. Going through -2 and -5, correct. On which axis, X or Y axis? Yep, it's definitely a U-shaped, Harris. Good job, well done. Nice one, nice one. Starting to make a bit of progress there. 10 is the x-axis. That's right. It goes through the x-axis at 10. Sorry, the y-axis at 10. Yeah? 10 is the y-axis, brilliant, yeah? And -2 and -5 are the x-axis, then logically, brilliant, yeah. What am I going to say to you? I'm going to say to you this, right? So just quickly sketch so you can see if you've got this right. And then I want to talk to you about what you've so far should have learned about quadratics. And I want to make sure that we sort of do understand the things that we're supposed to. So let's go through minus, there's a quick sketch. I mean, this is annoyingly for you that did all this plotting and hard work. That's the sketch. Other than actually get 10, clearly. I mean, it's not hard. Do you see what I mean? Your homework is very, very simple if you knew what the hell you're doing. Excellent. Okay, cool. So let's make a quick list of things that we should know. So we started quadratics about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I mean, since lockdown, isn't it, really? What have you learned so far? What should you know? You should know the formula. I'm going to test that in a minute. Yeah, quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm not asking you to memorize it yet, but you should know how to use it. You should know how to factorize. Yeah? Factorize both the easy ones with the x squared on it and the hard ones where it's like something like 4x squared, And now you should be able to sketch. Right? So that's 3 things hopefully you've learned so far. Unplot as well. But to be fair, I think I'm sure you've done plot because plot you've done in your homework. So those are the 4 big ideas you should know. All right? And that's what I'll be testing next week. I'm going to give you an online test. But for now, let's recap those skills, and I'm going to teach you one other thing about sketching, and that's going to be today's content, all right? So let's quick recap formula, all right? So it should be a relatively easy one for you to do. So you've got x squared. This one will come out, should I give you one that doesn't really work that well? Yeah, this one's going to come out as decimals, all right? And you're allowed to use the formula for this. Can you solve that equation for me, all right? Using the quadratic formula. Remember, you can only use the quadratic formula if it equals 0. And here is the quadratic formula. I'm sure you've seen it before, but you haven't done it for a couple of lessons. So b minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is a bit of a revision. As soon as you've got answers, can you type them in the chat box? It might take you a little while. I want the answers to 3 decimal places. All right? They won't come out as whole numbers. They are not whole numbers. So what I want you to do is try and solve that quadratic equation using the formula. If you can't do that, can you pop that in the chat box? Even though we've covered it, remember all my old videos are online. They've all got either the name tutorial, tuition, something like that. Sometimes they take a little while to pop up. Like last week, I thought it didn't pop up, and then it did. So if you can't do this, pop this up in the chat box. If you are struggling, put something in the chat box, and I'll happily do a little recap on it. And please do watch like previous videos if you're struggling to remember. Obviously not now. Ask me now because I'm here. But if I suppose I set you homework on it, you have got those old videos to look back on. You got an a equals 1, it is. That's quite right. I'm just going to, let me just give me a second. I'm going to cheat like a cheating person. Just run it on the calculator. Yes, correct, Harris, on all of those. Numan, I'm just checking your answer. Because I've got a calculator. It does it for me. I'm not trying to be annoying. Hold on a second. Can Harris, don't post anything for a second. I just want to check what Numan's popped up for me. Two decimal places. So there's 1, 6, 1. Okay, and that's, yeah, the 0.172 correct, yes. Negative 0.172. And that, the other one is minus 5.828. Yes, brought up. Numan got both, Harris got one. Good. Just checking that you remember it. Happy with that. Factorization, we've recapped. Plotting, you've shown you can do. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Just wanted to make sure you still got those skills from what I've taught you. Happy days. One more just to be sure. Let's stick some negative numbers and see if I can mess you up. After that, I want to show you what happens when it's not a U shape. All right. So we've talked about what it's a U shape. We said it's always a U shape when x squared is positive. I'm sure it means obviously you can work out that it's going to be a problem if and when it's not positive. Right, so that one's your last one to do. Okay, so again, solve it using the quadratic formula. Here you go. I mean, if you haven't already copied this down somewhere, have it around with you. As far as I remember from the GCSE paper, they don't give it to you anymore. It's something you need to know. But I'm not asking you to memorize it yet. All right? So yep, A is 2, B is 7. What's C is 1? I wanted to put a minus on. Never mind, just do it as it is. I wanted to put a minus on. That was being a bit stupid though. Do apologize. I should have thought. So 0.1, 0.149 is the claim. Let's have a look. I'll tell you if you're right. So T1. These are fun. Minus 0.149, correctly rounded. Well played. Your rounding has been on point. That's been excellent, by the way. Got to give you credit there. So first one's done right. Well done. Squared minus 3.35. Yep, well done. Correctly done. Super. Well done, Leon. Awesome. Right, okay, cool. We're going to drop that. I'm just going to give Harris a chance to pop up his final answer. I suspect he'll get the same thing he got the first one, right? As long as you're not cheating, should be fun. What I'm going to say to you is this, right? For the rest of this lesson, we're going to finish off with things like sketching. And then next week, we're going to do something called completing the square. And then after that, I'll not do a test next week. I was going to do one next week. I'll do one the week after on all of these topics. All right? Cool. So let's do this. So the question I asked you was, imagine you had an equation that looked like this. I'm just going to pick one at random. Wait, so you can see it. This thing got minus x squared. Just think of something. Minus 3x minus 2. Right? They're all minuses this time. Me. I just have to think of what worked, right? What can we say about that straight up? Well, first thing we can say about that straight up is if it's got a minus x squared instead of being a positive x squared, it's a sad face. All right? It's not a U shape, it's an N shape. All right? So when we're sketching a negative x squared, so an x squared, a minus 2x squared, a minus 5x squared, a minus whatever x squared, minus b would be positive. We're not solving this as an equation. All right? So we've gone back to sketching now. So if I didn't make that clear, we're sketching again. All right? Okay, so we're sketching. because I think you've proved in the two examples I gave you that the formula is fine, so I don't want to waste any more time on the formula. It's a good job, well done, right? So formula, you seem sorted. Plotting, you seem sorted. So sketching, we're going to just move on. We're going to do a bit more of it, yeah? So what I'm telling you that's new, take notes, is that if you've got a minus in front of your x squared, whether it's minus 5x squared, whether it's minus a million x squared, whether it's just minus x squared, instead of having a U shape, you're going to have an N shape, yeah? Sad face rather than happy face, right? Easy way to remember it is that if you're positive x squared, you're happy, smiley. If you're negative, you're sad. I mean, easy way to remember it, right? That gives you some new problems. Because what's happening there? What can we say straight away? We can say, obviously, that it's going to go through -2. So we know that. We draw a little sketch to me. We know it's going to go through -2. So it's going to go through there. But where else is it going to go through? And how do we find that? And the simple answer to this is, to be able to answer this question, what we do is we're going to take a minus sign out of everything. All right? This one's relatively easy to do. So what's going to happen is minus x squared minus 3x minus 2, so that should be a y there, my apologies, equals 0, will become minus x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Yeah? And how has that happened? Because I've taken a minus sign out of all of those things. All right? And then I can factorize as normal. So I've got minus x, what would that be then? Plus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Yeah, that's what that's going to look like. And what's going to make that whole thing equal 0 is going to be -2 and -1. And you can test that by putting numbers back into that and seeing what you get. Because you put, so let's take -1 for example. -1 squared into there, you get 1. That will become a -1. That's a -2, and that'll be a +3. So yeah, it works. So it's going to go through like this, and it's going to go through like that, and it's going to look a bit like that. All right. So that's what your graph sketch will look like. And those points are going to be -2, -1, and -2 again on the y-axis. All right. So what I need you to do now is pop something on the chat box and explain how confused you are, because you probably are at this point. All right. So that's what your graph would look like as a sketch. This one here. So pop something in the chat box if you're confused, and I suspect you will be. And then we'll talk it through. You took notes? I'm confused. Okay, cool. Let's have a look through it, yeah? We'll do another example, actually. And we'll go through it step by step, and we'll go through it slowly, all right? So suppose I said to you, we're going to sketch y equals, right, let me have a quick think. Got it. -x squared plus 5x minus 6. Yeah, that's what we're going to sketch, okay? What things can we say straight away? We can say it's going to be a sad face. It's going to look like that. That's what the sketch is going to be. Why? Because you've got -x squared. So that's fact number 1, right? If you've got a negative in front of your x squared, even if there's a number in between, it's a -8x squared, would be an example of something that's a -x squared quadratic. Then you're going to have a sad face. Part number 1. Part number 2, where is it going to go through? It's going to go through the y-axis at -6. All right? We'll go through the y-axis at -6. That's a fact. But then the hard thing is, where do I find the x-axis? So you can get 2 of these things relatively easily. Yeah, so you can get 2 of the criteria for a sketch. Remember, the sketch has 3 things you need to do for it: get the shape right, get the y-intercept right, and get the x-intercept right. Yeah, so you can get the y-intercept and the shape really easily. It's the x-intercept that's a problem. Now you could just use the formula. You could, but factorization on something like this is far easier. So that's what we're going to do. So let's write this out. Minus x squared plus 5x plus 6. Remember, to be able to factorize, we've got to put it equal to 0. Why are we doing that? Is because we want y to equal 0. Because when y equals 0, that's where you're going through the x-axis. If you're struggling with understanding why that's true, pop something in the chat box and we'll talk about that in detail. All right? But whenever we're trying to factorize to find things that are cutting through the x-axis, you've got to put it equal to 0 and not equal to y. So pop that in the chat box if you didn't understand that. So that's a minus sign there, I apologize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize the minus sign out of all of this to start with. So minus sign goes on the outside. A minus divided by a minus is just positive. A positive divided by a minus is a minus. Okay, cool. Let's not even go any further. Right, so you've often seen me write something like, let's pick this, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's pick that as the example, right? But yeah, when I want to find the y-axis, so where I want to find the x-intercept, where it cuts the x-axis, I stop writing y, and I write 0. And I'm going to explain now why in detail. And it won't be much detail. You don't need much detail on this. Why do I change it from y to 0? What gives me the right to do that? What gives me the right to do that is understanding how the graph works. All right? This is the x-axis. What is the y-coordinate for the x-axis? Okay, put it in the chat box. What is the y-coordinate for the entire x-axis? So the question I'm asking you is, what is the y-coordinate for the entire x-axis? 6? No. That's the y-intercept. All right? Numan, that's the y-intercept. I'm talking about the t shape, the axis, not the equation. So look at the x-axis. Yeah, this is the x-axis. I'm going to run my finger across it. There you go, animation. What is the y-coordinate for every single point on that x-axis? It's not 2 and 3. Y is not 6. No, it's not 2. How much, how high up and down is the x-axis itself? Not coordinates of the graph. Forget this for the minute. Ignore it for the minute. We're not doing that. I'm asking you, look at the axes. How tall? Yes, that's right, Milan. It's 0. So to be on the x-axis, your y-coordinate has to be what number? 0. That's why I replace the y with 0. Because I know any time that y equals 0, I must be on the x-axis. So if I want to find the coordinate, yeah, where it cuts the x-axis, I've got to make y equal 0. Because that's the only time the graph will have touched or cut through the x-axis. So the definition of the x-axis, in a way, the equation of the x-axis is sneakily y equals 0. If you didn't know that, that's the equation of the x-axis, y equals 0. And the equation of the x-axis is the same, x equals 0. Yeah. So it seems weird, it's counterintuitive that the x-axis is equation y equals 0, but it does. And the equation of the x-axis, the equation of the x-axis is y equals 0. And the equation of the y-axis is x equals 0. It's the opposite way around than you think it should be. But if you think about this axis now. What is the x-coordinate of every single light point on the y-axis? It's x equals 0. Because it goes through x equals 0, doesn't it? All right? So the x-axis has equation y equals 0. The y-axis has equation x equals 0. Write that down for me. Okay, write that down for me. It's really important. That's probably come up for you at some point. Someone said, here's a horizontal line, here's a vertical line, here's the axis. What are the equations? Now you know. And now you know why as well. All right? Then we're going to go back to our question. Okay? We'll go back to our question. So I'm going to need to take a couple of minutes just to copy that out for me. It's a new piece of mathematics, you know. Okay, so as soon as you finish copying down, stick it in the chat box, okay? Okay, brilliant. Okay, so let's go back to the question we had before. And that question was y equals minus x squared, what was it? Positive 5x minus 6. Did I go with that? Let me just see what I can do on this one. I'm just trying to figure out a good one. That would have to go minus 6, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. If this goes wrong, it goes wrong. It's not the end of the world, right? Yeah, it should work nicely. Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. So what do we know about this graph? Well, straight away we know it's a sad face. We've already discussed this in detail now. We know that if you've got a negative x squared with any number in front of it, and I haven't done anything with numbers in front of them for sketching yet, and we will do some probably next lesson. Maybe someone's homework actually. But like, it doesn't matter. As long as it's positive or negative and you can tell the difference, irrespective of numbers, doesn't matter. All right? Positive smiley face, negative sad face. Fine. We also know it's going to go through minus 6. So the y-intercept is minus 6. So we know it's going to cut the axis, the y-axis at minus 6. And our problem is we don't know what the x-intercepts are. Yeah? So that's the one we're really after. That's the challenging one, isn't it? All right? Okay, cool. How do we deal with that? Well, one thing you should now know, having gone through that whole long lecture that I gave you, is that x squared plus, so minus x squared plus 5x minus 6 will have to equal 0 now. All right? Why is that? Because of all the reasons I told you before. That's how you find x-intercepts. Put the y is equal to 0. But that's hard. I mean, there's two options here. You could either use the formula. You could. I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to use the formula here. I'm going to show you how to use factorization. So I know you can use the formula already, right? But you could use the formula. That would be fine. Or you could try factorizing. This is how you do it. What you'd do is you'd factorize out the minus sign. So when you factorize out the minus sign, you're basically dividing every single term by the minus sign. So a minus divided by a minus is a plus, x squared. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And all of a sudden, you've got something you can factorize. That whole thing there is x minus 3. I've got that right, x minus 2. Okay? So that's the trick you use to be able to factorize things that have got a negative sign in front of them. All right? You factorize out the negative sign by dividing everything through by that minus sign and then slapping it on the front. So we had a minus sign in front of the x squared. I wanted to get rid of it so I could do something I can actually factorize quite easily. So what I did was I did a minus divided by a minus. That's a plus divided by a minus. That's a minus divided by a minus is a plus. And I just put those signs in front of the x squared, the 5x, and the minus 6. All right, so I hope that's making some level of sense to you as well. So hopefully not too bad. Let's all bring this together to get the final answer in the picture. Obviously, we haven't finished. So what's a sketch going to look like? A sketch can look like this. We know it goes through minus 6. We also know it goes through positive 2 and positive 3. And we also know it's going to be a sad face, so our graph is going to look like that. It should be more symmetrical than that, but that's pretty much what it is. All right, do we see how that works? We knew that the x-intercept was minus 6 because it told us so. We knew it was a sad face because that told us so. We know it's going through minus 2 and minus 3 because we use this method of factorization here. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, again, a couple of minutes to take notes, then we're going to do a few examples together. I'm going to ask you to do a couple of examples, all right? So as soon as you finish doing notes, put it in the chat box. No rush. Okay. Right, then on Square and Harris. Superb. Right, what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to give you a relatively easy one. It's actually easier than the one I've just done. And I want you to describe what the graph looks like and do a sketch of it. This one's relatively easy. Okay. So I want you to tell me what it looks like. So what shape is it? Is it a U shape? Is it an N shape? I want you to tell me where it cuts the x-axis. I want you to tell me where it cuts the y-axis. Then I want you to draw it. So you can't see the question yet. Good shout. You can't actually pay more attention to my screen there. There we go. If you can see that now. Apologies. It's not a U shape. So what shape is it? You're right, it's not a U shape. It's not a mountain. Yeah. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's sort of mountainish. It's most people just call it like a sad face or an N shape or whatever. It looks like this, doesn't it? Yeah, looks like that. It is symmetrical like the U shape. Okay, yep, cool. You got the shape right. Where does it cut the y-axis? Where does it cut the y-axis? Should be able to just tell me that straight away just while looking at it. Where's that going to cut the y-axis? Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have a very sad face for it to look like that. Yeah, cost B minus A. Can't set y-axis at -8. So y-intercept is -8. Good. Now I want you to find the two x-intercepts. That's a bit harder. All right? So -8, not +8. So far you've done good. You've got the shape right. You've got the y-intercept right. Not sure about x. So what's the method? Type in the chat box. What is the first thing that you should do? All right? Put in the chat box. Give me the instruction. I want to find the x coordinate. What's the first thing I should do? Look at the equation, yeah? 1 minus... I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. I'm a bit confused, I'm not going to lie. But the first thing that you're meant to do is put the whole thing equal to 0. And we've talked about this quite a lot of times now. That the reason why we do that is because to cut the x-intercept, you have to have a y-coordinate of 0. Now what do I do? So what are you doing first? What literally, explain in words, lots of words if necessary. What do I do from here? I've got this, which is right, because I did it. What happens next? Put it in the chat box. Yes. Harris, you're right. But what happens after that? Not yet. You can't factorize yet. You need to take the minus sign out first, which is something maybe that's what you meant, but writing one word isn't clear. So factorize the minus out of there, yeah? Minus divided by a minus is a plus. Minus divided by a minus is a plus. Minus divided by a minus, guess what? It's a plus, yeah? Now you can factorize, yeah? Now you can factorize and find those x-intercepts, okay? Which I'm going to ask you to do now for me. So what are the x-intercepts? That's what we're looking for here. That's what I'm waiting on. 2 and 4, yeah. The factorization is 2 and 4, isn't it? Where are the actual intercepts though? So yeah, it's gonna, you factorize this to +2 +4 like that, not with any signs in the middle. But that's not the actual intercepts, are they? Where are the actual intercepts? They're not +2 +4, are they? What are they really? -2 -4, yeah. So the x-intercept. So you should now be able to draw it. That's what I want you to do now. Sketch that graph because you've got all the information you need. You know what shape it is. You know where it's going through the y-intercepts. So you know where it's going to cut through the y-axis. You know it's going to cut through the x-axis, where it's going to cut. So can you sketch that for me? Now I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. Then I'm going to set your homework. And be clear, I'm asking you to sketch, not plot. All right? And feel free, you do need to go back and look at the video if you're struggling with stuff. You don't understand an idea. Because all the videos are there for you. All right? So about 2 minutes. Confirm when you've done the sketch. Yep, it's a U shape, curve down. Got about a minute and I'm going to give you the answer. Okay, just so you can check your answers, here's what the answer would look like. It's going to go through, what, -2, -4. And you know when you're sketching them, make sure you put the number in so that, like, whoever's marking it can tell that you understand where it goes. Goes through -8, it looks a bit like that. Okay, so U shape. It's not bent, you just can't draw straight. I'll do it properly. There you go, it's a bit better. So -4, -2, -8. Okay. Right, what we'll do is I'm going to put your homework on this board to get ready to copy it down. So for each one, I'm asking you to sketch it. To get full credit from every sketch, you need to have the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and the orientation, which means the shape of it, whether it's a U shape or an N shape. Okay? If you didn't get to see any of that, I mean, you go back and watch the video. Usually it takes a couple of hours to load up for some reason. I don't know why it does that. It is what it is. You can't see that. That's useless. Yeah, they're always upload. They've always been there. They just take a while to upload. I don't know why, but if you come back, say tomorrow, they'll be uploaded. So all of these need to be sketched for me. Sketched, not plotted. Okay, just be absolutely clear on that, yeah? That should work. The thing is, you've got to work these out in your head to make sure they work out nicely. I'll give you 4. That should work. That. Yeah, I hope that last one works. We'll find out. Okay, so you got these four. All right, take care, guys. Look after yourselves. Hope everyone in your family is all doing well and everything's all right there. I'm done for this. Please go back and look at this stuff. I don't know what, like, whether you're doing homework and you've got other stuff to do. I get that. Obviously, doing online classes. But I reckon what I'm teaching is probably ahead of what your maths teacher's teaching. And if you can master it now, you're going to be in a good place. All right? So you take care. Look after yourselves. And I'll catch you next week. There's only 4 questions. I want you to sketch all of them to get, it's going to be 3 marks per question. Get the shape right. Thank you, Harris. Get the shape right. Get the x-intercepts right. Get the y. Maybe 4 marks per question. Okay? So this one will be out 16. All right, take care. Look after yourselves. I'm off. Bye.